Hi, and welcome to our second of our series of 3 financial courses for drivers. My name is Cindy Turman. I'm VP of Operations on Schaefer.
And my name's Kyle Check, Corporate Controller over in accounting for Creek Carrier.
So for those of you who took our first class, we talked all about budgeting. So how to budget, how to build a budget, why you need a budget. So just trying to figure out, what were the hardest parts of budgeting? Were there any challenges that came up? Did you do it with a partner? What things did you see that really made you think? So budgeting is very simple but not easy. Like we said last time, it takes a while. So like we say here, just stick with it. It takes 3 to 6 months to really dial that budget in. So really don't give up after that first month. You will definitely have missed something. There's going to be some kids sporting event or something that's going to pop up that you were not expecting. So just make sure that you take your time and just dial it in a little every month. And lastly, just make sure you marry up all your transactions at the end of the month to make sure that you did not forget anything. That's really important to understand that money that's going out, to make sure that's all been accounted for.
Yeah. I would add that you will miss something. Mm-hmm. You will miss the first few times you do a budget. You probably will forget to do something. Don't get discouraged and give up. Just try and get it nailed down for the next time. So.
I still miss things, so Don't worry about it. So we're going to go back to our financial roadmap here. So in our first class, we talked about budgeting, how to do a budget, what it is. Now we're really going to go into debt elimination. So how do we decrease our spending? How do we increase our income to work on that debt elimination? So the first thing that you want to do is, what do I do if I'm not current on all my bills? It's very important. We talk about the 4 walls: food, utilities, shelter, transportation. Those are the things you need to take care of first before you do anything else. So if you don't have enough money to pay everything, you're not current on your bills, make sure you pay those 4 things. Anything left over, you're going to split out between your other creditors. So that might be a student loan, it might be credit cards, it might be a personal loan, whatever that is. But if you are behind from the get-go and you need to get current on your bills, that is the first step here. So there are 2 ways to tackle your debt. We have a debt snowball and a debt avalanche. So first of all, the debt snowball, you're paying your debts off in order of balance. So if I have a $10,000 debt and I have a $1,000 debt, regardless of the interest rate, I'm going to pay off the $1,000 debt first. What you'll do is you'll pay minimum payments on all your debts and put any extra money to that smallest debt until you pay it off, and then we'll keep moving up the ladder. The second piece of this is the debt avalanche, where you pay off your debts in order of interest rate. So if I, again, have a $10,000 debt and a $1,000 debt, regardless of how much I owe, whatever has the highest interest rate, that's what I'm going to work to pay off first. So the benefits of both: on the debt snowball, you gain a lot of momentum quickly. So say you have a couple debts that are $1,000 or $800, you really gain momentum in paying off that debt, and it really helps people stay motivated to move forward. The debt avalanche, you will pay your debts off quicker with less interest, but you may be starting with a very high debt, and it might take you a long time to get that debt polished off. So there's no wrong way. Paying off debt is good any way you do it. These are just 2 examples. In this case, we will be using the debt snowball.
Yeah, we'll just kind of get started with showing you what that looks like. How do we put these numbers from our example that we laid out in our last class? We'll use that same example here and just talk through the numbers of how do we make this work and what does it look like from a practical perspective in a real life, or at least example of a real life situation. So the first thing in getting started is making sure that you do your best to establish that $1,000 starter emergency fund. We mentioned that a little bit at the end of the last course, and the reason for that is just to make sure you don't get thrown off course by some unexpected emergency. Maybe your car breaks down and that's going to cost you $400. You don't want to have to go back into debt once you're starting to pay it off to try and cover something like that. So if you have $1,000 there, that covers a fair amount of those pop-up type emergencies. It won't cover all of them, obviously. There might be things that are more than that, and you will want to have a larger emergency fund later after we get past getting through this debt payoff section. But that's just a way to start doing it and making sure you have a little bit there to keep yourself covered from those emergencies that might pop up from time to time. The next thing you want to do is take that debt list that we had and list them in order from the smallest to greatest by the amount owed. So you can see down there in the chart on the bottom, we started with the credit card. That was our lowest amount owed of a little over $1,800, and worked our way up to the pickup truck payment, which is which we owe about a little over $20,000 on right now. So we just put them in order from lowest to greatest, so we can start, like Cindy said, gaining momentum by paying off those smaller ones first, get them done a little quicker, so your debt list will shrink quicker and give you more positive momentum as you move forward. As we get started here, we're going to start with that smallest debt, paying any extra income we have or any available cash we have towards that first. But we also keep making minimum payments to stay current on all our other debt as we go along as well. So that's kind of how we get started off with the debt snowball process. So for our example here, we have an employee, and our employee has, like we said before, 4 months a year where they get that fifth paycheck. That Crete driver will have 5 months out of the year where they get that additional paycheck with $1,000. That equates to $333 per month extra that we can use towards this debt over the course of the year. So on the bottom there, you can see on our monthly payment section, we have an extra payment column there towards the right, where we've put that $333 in that chart to show, okay, our minimum payment was only $50.11, but we have this extra $333 that we're getting from that fifth paycheck that wasn't used for our budget. That's just kind of extra money that we can use towards this, and that makes our total payment that we can put towards that first debt $383.11. So by doing that, we're going to be able to pay off that debt much faster than if we just stayed with that minimum payment. So you'll do that by finding, like I said, an easy way to do that is those 4 paychecks a year that you get the extra one. If you can get to your budget to a spot where you can find extra ways to find more income, cut your expenses to a spot where you have more to throw at it, then great. Throw all the extra you can to try and pay off this debt as quick as possible. But that would go in that extra payment column and start making those extra payments as you go. So let's fast forward 6 months after we start making these extra payments. The credit card debt will be completely paid off after 6 months. That would have taken almost 5 years by just making those minimum payments. So you can see the benefit of just throwing that extra cash towards it and getting that paid off quicker. That was a quick win that would have taken a long time otherwise had we not taken this approach. So that first debt, now that it's being paid off, we can take that full payment we were making before, the $383.11, excuse me. If we take that, because that payment's now paid off, we can apply that whole thing as an extra payment toward that car payment, which is the next one on the list. So you can see we've taken that minimum payment on the car from $179, and now we're paying $562 every month on it because we've got that extra payment available from that debt we've already paid off. That's going to help us snowball this, as we say, as the term provides, to help get these things paid off much more quickly. So going through this process, you might say, okay, well, how long is this going to take to get all the way to the end? When will our debt-free date be? Well, if we're using just those 4 extra paychecks that we've been talking about to put extra money towards your debt, you could pay off your entire debt here, which started out being just over $46,000. Yeah. You can pay that off in 3 years and 7 months. So it still may seem like a little bit of a period of time, but you're able to accelerate those payments to say, okay, I know my end date now is only 3.5 years away, just by making those, just by using that extra paycheck every 4 months out of the year. If though you can go through your budget and find, on top of that, maybe you can find another $200 in your budget that you were spending on something that didn't need to be, that you could put towards your debt, you can make that go even quicker and pay that off in 3 years and 1 month. So you can shave off another 6 months if you can find another $200 a month in your budget to help put towards this debt payment process.
That could be a couple times eating out with your family or just some frivolous spending that maybe you just don't think about. So $200 is not a lot. I think you'll be surprised on how quickly you find it and how much momentum you gain. And that's only $200. So you can find well more than that and cut this down even further. Yeah.
Especially with the prices of what is being charged these days, right? You can find $200 just by cutting out maybe one or two meals sometimes. Exactly. So, the note on this then, so paying it off in 3 years or 7 months, or 3 years and 1 month, maybe in our next example, or hopefully maybe you can do even better than that if you can find some extra money. That's compared to if you were only making those minimum payments, it would take over 5 years to pay off all those debts. So you're basically shaving off 33% of the length of time it took to pay off your entire debt load by making these extra payments and using that extra paycheck to your advantage to go ahead and make these payments quicker. So just kind of shows you how quickly you can use this to your advantage getting out of debt.
Absolutely. So how do we get our snowball moving? We've talked about the first thing you need to do is ways to kind of get that extra cash. The first thing is trimming your spending. So like I just talked about, dining out is a big one that people overspend on. It adds up quickly. You know, you bring the family out, maybe you add a drink or two in there, you get appetizers, or hey, I don't feel like cooking tonight, let's go out. It is one of the number one things that people overspend on. So that's something to really be cognizant of. The second is entertainment. So maybe I don't need to go to, maybe I have season tickets to something, or concerts, or not to say to cut them out altogether, but really look at what you're spending in that category. Clothing is another big one. There's people who really like new clothes, want to purchase new clothes all the time. There are different options for clothing. There are many secondhand sites that are very popular that we'll talk about here. Also, you know, it's very trendy, getting vintage clothes. That seems to be a thing that a lot of people are doing as well. So there are different opportunities on clothing. Groceries, Kyle has talked about several times. There are different options of buying in bulk, buying when things are on sale and freezing it or making meals out of it, not buying the name brand labels, maybe not going to the name brand stores. There are a lot of ways you can cut your grocery bill, but grocery is a big one. It's usually up there with dining out on what people overspend on with groceries. We'd kind of talked about cable and streaming services before. There are a lot of different options out there rather than just having cable. But what Kyle said, you got to be patient and not just go crazy and get 10 streaming services. So it can quickly add up. So, you know, cutting the cord and getting just 1 or 2 streaming services is definitely going to be better in the long run for you. Monthly subscription services, this seems to be the wave of the future. Actually, there is a Glitter of the Month club out there. That's why I have that on here. There actually is a Glitter of the Month. There are a ton of these clubs out here that a lot of people sign up for, and they don't even realize that every month they're getting charged for that. So just being able to review any subscriptions that you have, it doesn't even need to be of the month subscriptions. It could be newspapers, magazines, any of those that just kind of, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Or I signed up for a free trial and now I'm getting charged every month. Those are real opportunities. We have brought up phones. I know Kyle and I use a phone service that, you know, it's like $25 a month. So there are different options out there for phone services rather than going through big companies. So that's an option to look at. Gyms, we have a lot of people we've talked to have gym memberships that they really don't use. So if you use your gym membership, great, but that might be something to look at. Internet service, you might have some iCloud services. Car insurance is another good option. Any of your insurance, whether it's homeowner and car insurance, that's always good to review at least once or twice a year just to make sure there's not a better deal out there.
Yeah, I think that's there's a lot to be said about that. Just making sure you're checking around periodically and not getting complacent and paying that same bill over and over again without ever checking if there's something better out there or something that's got more value for a cheaper cost. A lot of times just reviewing what you're paying for, which is kind of part of the budgeting process, realizing things you were paying for that, like Cindy said, that you didn't even know you were paying for, and then looking where you might have an opportunity to find a better deal. Mm-hmm. Just making sure you're checking on that every once in a while to see what's out there can really help a lot.
And again, you're going to be very surprised with how quickly you find some money in here, the things you can quickly cut that you really won't miss. It's just that we haven't been paying attention that closely before, and we are now. So that's probably the biggest takeaway. So the other way to get our snowball moving is getting extra cash. So we talked about maximizing hours and miles at work, maybe spending extra time out on the road. decluttering, as Kyle talked about earlier, is a big one. We all have things around our house. We have over 300,000 items in our house on average. There are a lot of things that sit in boxes, sit in storage rooms, sit in garages that haven't been opened for years that somebody would love. So either having a garage sale, there's a variety of different platforms that you can sell items on to get a lot extra cash, but this seems to work out pretty well. Not only are you helping declutter some old stuff you need to get out of your house, but you're going to make some money on it too. So that's a pretty easy way to make that happen.
All right, that brings us to the end of today's course. So we'll just kind of look at what we're looking for as of the assignment before the next time we come together with our third and final course. So continue working on that household budget. Stick to it, keep working through it, try and follow it as closely as you can, keep refining it. I think the more you get used to it, the more it kind of becomes a habit and second nature to do that. And it's not such a chore anymore, and it actually gets kind of fun sometimes if you start having some success with that. So keep working on that. And then also keep working towards that $1,000 emergency fund. If you've already got to that point, then you can go ahead and get started with that debt snowball that we've lined out and laid out for you today. So just some things to work on before we meet next time and go through our third course. So thanks all for joining us.
For more information about managing your debt or budgeting, email us at financialwellness@creekcarrier.com.